instead of countries banning Bitcoin, countries would embrace Bitcoin, hoard Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin as a store of value. And the game theory built into the Bitcoin protocol means that all countries, India is now talking about.
Interestingly enough, you actually have seen a lot of people sell out of Bitcoin at a loss recently, which isn't a good sign considering they're willing to sell out of it, assuming it's going to go lower. So it's nothing that I'm looking at right now. I do still think it's a little bit too speculative and volatile.
Also, only a tiny percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the video.
Good money managers speak with a great deal of concision because it helps execution, doing trades, talking with traders. You need to get your point across quick, get orders in fast. So Paul Tudor Jones speaks with syntax that is compressed. And he said something very simple and yet speaks volumes. He said, look, the Fed isn't doing anything about these rising prices. Full stop.
Yeah.
Okay. So that he's just saying very clearly that the Fed causes inflation, the Fed's not going to stop inflation, and he's scared into safe havens, principally Bitcoin. When you listen to the Fed talk, they don't even talk about inflation. In fact, they only talk about deflation. It's absolutely doublespeak, 1984, George Orwell nonsense from these central banks. And for professional money managers, they're like, okay, I'm checking out of this game. It's rigged too badly. I've never seen it rigged this bad. And the only asset that makes any sense is Bitcoin.
The Fed's
trying to say, we're going to build an economy. In our definition of the building block of that economy, money, nobody knows has the same definition. Every single member of the Federal Open Market Committee has a completely different definition of money. They have a different definition of what the money supply should be. They have a different definition of what the purpose of the Fed is. And the result is they just print by the trillions and then hope things go in the right direction. There's no policy other than hope. And so the average worker is saying, wait a minute, how about if you just send me the money, I'll stay home and wait until you guys figure it out. But I'm not going to go to the job for minimum wage if you're going to pay me double minimum wage to sit here and watch TV and eat donuts. Pretty much that's what's going on. This is another example of a population mired in fiat money. The Chinese yuan is printed by the trillions and has lost all value. And the government is trying to dictate values through the messaging of propaganda. The same as America uses propaganda instead of the market to create price signals, and the economy is crashing and foundering. The same thing in China, where El Salvador is saying, you know what, Bitcoin gives us a chance to get out of the yoke of the IMF and these central bankers. As a matter of fact, I'm talking in ways that have encouraged them to talk with bankers to create these volcano bonds to pay off the IMF completely and escape all central banking completely. And you're going to see the GDP of El Salvador triple. It's going to go from 20 billion to 60 billion. Property prices are already on the move. And they've got people now moving to El Salvador to take advantage of this burgeoning, incredible, utopian Bitcoin country that is setting an example for the entire world. And let's face it, I predicted that you would end up with hash wars, what I called hash wars, starting 3 years ago. That instead of countries banning Bitcoin, countries would embrace Bitcoin, hoard Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin as a store of value. And the game theory built into the Bitcoin protocol means that all countries, India is now talking about this. And that's, of course, 1 billion plus population with multi-trillion-dollar GDP. So what we've been saying is going to happen, El Salvador fired the shot for global adoption of Bitcoin, and if countries like the US or China, where the population is lying down, they're on protest, they're not working, GDP is collapsing, you know, they could be left behind.
Right. Well, importantly, also the element in this that I want to point out is the Cantillionaire effect and the global oligarchies controlling the very global economy, right? It's these multinationals that are united across the world. The multi-billionaire class are all united in one sort of class. So I want to look at that sort of Atlas Shrugged moment in this lie flat movement, because the dawning on the population in this fiat economy of China, what they're noticing is that the notion of a meritocracy is bogus. And you see that that's why they've decided instead to just lie down. If I can't actually get ahead and it's all fake and it's all a hoax, well, I'm not going to work at all, essentially. Jian Zhang, a 27-year-old night owl, told Insider that he did not start out wanting to join the lying flat movement, but his struggles to conform to expectations, particularly through university, made him one of its most ardent followers. Quote, sons of businessmen and daughters of officials got a head start that it was equivalent to an entire lap or two around the track. I think it is inevitable that people like me would lose the race. So that made me think, why do I even try? So again, this is like the cantillionaire effect. You see that across America in the past year as well, that people are, the unrest is spreading because of the inflation, the supply chain disruptions, but the dawning realization that there's something not quite right. Obviously, you could, move the crowd to whatever way you want, and that's why we have a lot of these, all these weird theories being presented in schools as an explanation for what is causing this problem, when it's just the same simple fiat structure, the bad incentives within it that lead you to the conclusion that you would just rather lie flat than get up and go build.
Right. This is similar to the collapse of the Spanish Empire. You remember Spain went around the world and hoarded gold from all over the world. And it created a population that was bifurcated in this way, extreme wealth at the very top. And ultimately, it led to a situation where everything that needed to be done from a day-to-day basis collapsed. And the empire collapsed as a result.
Yeah, well...
This is a paper money version of that.
Yeah, because what had happened, and we only have a few minutes to go into this, so of course it's not totally accurate, but what part of what happened was Spain was only interested in the gold, wherever they were in the New World, i.e. over here in the Americas, whereby places in the Caribbean that didn't have gold, they allowed the Dutch and the Brits to colonize those instead, rather than fight wars over it. They were like, well, we just are interested in the gold. So in Colombia or the Peru and those sort of places, we're going to occupy there and put our attention there. And they let the whole sugar trade, which helped places like the UK build a huge empire. And we had the Cantillon effect in Spain as a result. Whenever they found a huge pot of gold, it would have huge inflation. Nobody wanted to work. Everybody had money. It was
right. So it's lack of diversity, but in the version of paper money. So in the US, in the UK, around the world, in China, you have the people who are close to the paper money creators, the central banks. And that's all they're interested in asset prices zooming higher based on 0% loans and free money. And now they're all this empire. It's a global empire collapse of paper money. And El Salvador now is set to absolutely crush it, which is amazing.
But again, comparing the mindset of this two, cultures in the good money and the bad money. Most people live in the bad money culture. That's their society. They haven't found Bitcoin. They're not hopeful for a future. They're not even just hopeful, they're building a future.